Hi everyone. Thank you very much for your kind remarks and your gracious comments. They're very much appreciated. Thank you. Some of you have asked that I go into greater detail regarding security force methods, tactics, weapons and so on. And if possible to illustrate these with photographs. I've found a couple of photographs and I would just like, as far as my experience and my understanding goes, to perhaps comment on what I see there. Here is a photograph taken at a Ford airfield, and it shows an RAR stick about to be deployed into the operational area. Normally these men served on a rotational basis. In other words, they would have some time at home on R&R. When they returned to duty, they would then work in the bush as infantrymen, patrolling, setting up ambushes, watching for enemy movement from concealed observation points and so on. And then they would also serve for a period on a fire force. But as I look at this image, I don't get the impression that this is a picture of a fire force group. The scene is far too relaxed. Nobody seems to be in a hurry. They've all got plenty of time on their hands. In fact, the choppers in the background, for the most part, are unattended. Very little activity taking place. I think they're just waiting for the fourth member of the stick. Let's just start. On the left-hand side, we have a soldier with his back toward us. Ignore the European man for the moment. He appears to me to be the helicopter technician. And standing beside him, with his back toward us, is what looks like the MAG gunner. And on the right-hand side is the stick leader. And we know he's the stick leader because he has a radio on his back. Although he's unscrewed the antenna by this time, prior to getting into the helicopter, he's folded it up and tucked it into one of his pouches. Each of these riflemen would be armed with a South African-made R1 rifle, an excellent weapon, hard-hitting, powerful. In the hands of an expert, this rifle would bring down an elephant. And for our purposes, it was perfect. We needed to bring our enemy down and keep him down, and if necessary, kill him with one shot. And the R1 was the perfect instrument for that. You'll notice that there are no bayonets, steel helmets, anything like that. These items were considered to be superfluous, although looking at the stick leader, we can see a rather wicked-looking knife in a scabbard on his side. Well, that wouldn't be used for combat. He's taking that with him in case he needs to clear the bush to make a helicopter landing zone at some point. The men with the rifles would each have about 5 magazines of 20 rounds each. One magazine would be on the rifle when in the field. The weapon would be loaded, cocked, put on safe, and it would be in that condition for days on end. The MAG gunner would want at least 250 rounds of ammunition available to him. Some of these gunners prefer to take 400 rounds of ammunition. But 400 rounds is a lot of weight to carry, and you need your mates to give you a hand with that. And in fact, the man on the left is doing just that. We can see that he is carrying some of the ammunition for the MAG gunner. In addition to weapons and ammunition, the stick would have other items as well that they would need to take with. Amongst these men, there's probably at least one claymore mine, and that in itself is not exactly a lightweight item to walk around with. Then there would be grenades. Each of these men probably carried an M962 on him, maybe a White Foss as well, if he preferred that. There'd be 2 or 3 rifle grenades. There would be a shock pack containing medical equipment, saline drips. There'd be a 8x40 pair of binoculars. And then there was the personal items that each soldier would carry. For a start, there would be no toiletries, no deodorant sprays or toothpaste or anything of that nature. The smell of that carries too far in the bush and it could cost you your life. So nothing like that. Sleeping bags, and we can see these in the picture. Depending what time of year it was, if it was the rainy season, they'd probably have a poncho or a ground sheet, that type of thing. And then of course there'd be rations. This group looks like they're probably going for about a week, so each man would have to carry enough food to last him for that time. And then, of course, water bottles filled with water. So that was an important part, and it also adds to the weight of what a man has to carry. Here is an image of the stick leader. It's obviously been posed for publicity purposes. Under other circumstances, that wristwatch of his would be covered up to prevent any reflection giving away their position. On the ground, the stick leader is the man in charge. He decides everything, the direction that the stick will move in, the speed that they'll move in, where they will rest, where they will set up ambushes, how they will set up these ambushes. He controls everything. He is using either an A63 or an A76 radio. He would have at least one spare battery tucked away in a pouch somewhere. As far as paperwork is concerned, he'd have a notebook, maps of the area that they're operating in. He'd have a prismatic compass, a protractor, which will aid him in taking back bearings off the features around him and plotting his position on the map. And then he would have a shackle code, and this would enable him to send his location statements throughout the day in a disguised form so that any enemy listening in on the airwaves would not be able to know where he was. It was not uncommon for the stick leader to carry a hypodermic syringe with a vial of morphine or Sosagon with him. And this would be that in the event one of his men is wounded in a contact, if the injuries were very bad and very severe, he could administer the drug to deaden the pain. And if it was morphine, he would then ensure that some sticking plaster is stuck onto the forehead of the wounded man, giving the time and the dosage of the morphine administered. If it was Sosagon, he wouldn't bother. It wasn't possible to overdose with it, and Sosagon had no addiction-forming properties to it at all. So it was a very safe drug, but not quite as effective as morphine. In addition to this, the stick leader would probably have some smoke grenades in order to signal his position. And then he would have a small device on him, which was locally produced in Rhodesia, about the size of a pen. In fact, it was called a pen-light projector. And it was a device for launching a small mini flare into the sky. And you would just screw the flare onto the end of this little trigger on the side of it, pull that down, let it go, and this discharges the flare. It shoots up into the sky, gives a nice, brilliant color light. It doesn't go very high, but it certainly serves its purpose. So you would have something like that on him as well for signaling. Well, those were two images from the Rhodesian African Rifles Association. I trust that they may have been of some interest to you. I'll see if I can find something on some of the other regiments, and again, I will just provide commentary on that. Once again, thank you very much for your words of encouragement, for your kind remarks. As I said before, they very much appreciated. I do not take it for granted. Thank you very much.